"Mr. Roberts, you've been fired. Mr. Roberts, you've been fired." "Why?" I asked. "It doesn't matter why," the manager replied. One day, when I was thinking about how I only had a year left until retirement, a young manager joined our department. He called me over and suddenly told me I was being fired. I asked him why, but he refused to explain, so I had no choice but to accept it. I felt lost and told my wife, who looked shocked. The next day, I went to the office to collect my belongings, only to find my desk in a mess. "My name is Stephen Roberts. I'm an ordinary employee at a securities firm. I started here when I was 30, and I've worked hard for 29 years, with just 1 year left until retirement." The handover. "Mr. Roberts, I'd like to discuss this handover with you. Are you talking about this client?" I asked. "Yes," the manager said. "I've been assigned this company, but I'm not sure how to handle them. It's a good idea to have a detailed meeting with them," I replied. "They're very cautious, because this is a big transaction. If we can ease their concerns in our meetings, things should go smoothly." "I see. Thank you so much," he said. As I was nearing retirement, I had been handing off my responsibilities to my replacement. A new manager joins. I was glad to finally have a break from my usual work and looked forward to spending the rest of the year working on internal projects. Then one day, a new employee joined our department, having transferred from Tokyo. The branch manager introduced me to him, a young man named Taylor Norris. He introduced himself, saying, "I've recently been promoted to manager of this department. My name is Taylor Norris, and although I'm young, I'll do my best to lead you all as my father led this company. I'm excited to work with everyone." Hearing the last name Norris, I immediately thought of the CEO's son, and soon realized that this was, indeed, the CEO's son, appointed as our department head at only 25. First encounter with the new manager. "Who created this report?" he asked one day. "I did," I replied. "Why is the document in this format? Can you make it easier to read?" "The format was decided beforehand," I explained. "I just followed what was given." "I don't care when it was decided," he snapped. "If I find it hard to read, imagine how much more difficult it will be for my father, the CEO." "Do you present reports like this in front of him?" I apologized, and he added, "If I ever take over as president and see a report like this, I wouldn't want to read it. Make documents that catch my attention." Every time he spoke, he'd bring up his father's influence. The arrogant new manager. I knew the new manager was the CEO's son, but he was so arrogant. He just assigned tasks to us and left everything for us to handle. The other day, he even complained about a document I had prepared exactly the way he'd asked. Every time I mentioned something, he would bring up his father, so it was hard to talk to him. People were starting to complain. I often heard him mention his father, but I tried to ignore it since I planned to retire that year. A mysterious meeting. "Mr. Roberts, could you come here for a moment?" "Of course. How can I help?" I replied. "Let's talk in private in the meeting room." After my lunch break, I had just returned to work when the manager suddenly summoned me to a meeting. I wondered what I might have done wrong. Was it about a new client, a problem with an old client, or something more serious? I had no idea. "Is there an issue, sir?" I asked, curious, but a bit nervous. "No, it's just about something different," he replied. When I asked for more details, he didn't explain, only asked me to join him in the meeting room. As I walked there, I was filled with questions, unsure of what was going on. "Well, please have a seat," he said as I entered. "Yes, sir," I replied, sitting down. The sudden dismissal. "I'm going to be direct, Mr. Roberts, you're fired." I was stunned by his blunt announcement, completely caught off guard and at a loss for words. The manager handed me a termination letter, but I was too shocked to process it, trying to remember if I'd done anything wrong. Finally, I found my voice and asked him why. But he didn't give a clear reason. He just said, "This decision has already been made." Not satisfied, I asked him again and again, but he only replied, "It's a decision that's been made. You were going to retire next year anyway," he continued. "Think of it as early retirement. But I still have a year left, and I'm just as capable as anyone else," I argued. I've heard you've already handed over most of your tasks, and you're not doing any outside work. You're physically too old, aren't you? That's not true, I insisted. Regardless, it's been decided that you'll be fired. Leave the rest to us younger people. That's not fair, I said, frustrated. Do you even know who I am, Mr. Roberts? I could tell the CEO, and he'd agree with me, the manager replied, then left the room. I was left sitting there, dazed and unsure of what to do next. With no other choice, I headed home in silence, wondering how I'd explain this to my wife, but I knew I had to tell her. Breaking the news to my wife. As I drove home, my mind was racing. I worried about how to tell my wife that I'd been fired and whether it would make her anxious. I'm home, I called out when I arrived. Welcome home, I've made dinner, she replied warmly. After changing, I sat down for dinner, feeling the weight of my news. I have something important to tell you, I began. Does it have to do with why you seem down? She asked. Yes, I've been laid off, I said, avoiding eye contact, afraid she'd be disappointed. But to my surprise, her response was cheerful. I'm so happy you've finally left that company, she said, smiling. I looked up, shocked by her reaction. You've worked so hard all these years, she added. Now let's enjoy life a bit more. Seeing her smile lifted my spirits. She didn't blame me at all. The next morning, as she left for work, she simply said, "Take care." Returning to the office. The next day, I went back to the office to gather my belongings, but as I arrived, I noticed the place was unusually tense. I heard hushed conversations. What's happening with this client? Someone muttered. Who's responsible? Just then, I got a phone call. Another one came almost immediately after. When I reached my floor, I noticed the manager was in a full-blown panic. What's going on this morning? I asked a colleague. We've had major clients calling to cancel their contracts one after another, and no one knows why, he replied, looking worried. I was stunned. Our largest clients had suddenly started leaving, one by one. Chaos at the office. As the cancellations piled up, each person in charge of a major client was frantically trying to make contact, but no one could figure out what was wrong. The manager grew more frustrated as the day wore on. By noon, the situation had worsened, with even more contracts cancelled. The general manager looked pale, overwhelmed by the chaos. Even with everything going on, I wanted to give a final farewell speech, so I approached the manager, but he brushed me off, saying, I'm not in the mood for this right now, let's do this later. So, I turned to say goodbye to my coworkers. As I greeted them, I could still hear the manager's frustrated voice echoing through the office. Are you in touch with them? If we get more cancellations, the losses will be huge. Don't you realize the first people to be let go will be the ones under you? He shouted. I've been trying to reach them since this morning, one of my colleagues replied. Then go directly to their office and apologize, he snapped. You're useless, that's why you can't get promoted. If you're responsible, act like it. That's a bit harsh, the employee said, attempting to defend themselves. What's that? You're talking back? Only do that after you've solved the problem, he shot back. The general manager kept scolding his team, moving from one person to the next. A surprising goodbye. With all the chaos in the office, I couldn't even say proper goodbyes, so I quickly packed up my belongings and went home. Since I'd already been fired, there was no way to find out exactly why. When I told my wife about the mess at work, she laughed and said, "Oh, that company, we actually had a lot of contracts with them, but I canceled all of them." Wait, why would you do that? Was it because I got laid off? I asked, surprised. That's part of it, she replied, but honestly, I never thought highly of your company. The salespeople were polite at first, but when I visited, I always felt they were just putting on a show. So, you canceled all the contracts? I asked, still processing it. Yes, I thought it was a good chance to let them go. It turns out my wife is the chairman of a holding company that runs several popular restaurants. Her company had contracts with my company, but she didn't think well of them and used this chance to cut ties. I couldn't hide my surprise, but in a way, I felt relieved. It's unfortunate you had to leave like this, but let's enjoy life now, she said. I agree, it's a bit sooner than I planned, but I'm ready to relax. Yes, you've worked so hard all these years, she added, smiling. Now I can spend more time with you. I'm actually stepping down as chairman myself, and I've already chosen my successor. Despite being laid off, I felt lucky. After 29 years at the company, I had saved enough, and now we were both ready to take life easy. With our early retirements, we began enjoying our days together, free from the stresses of work.